Do you feel safe at night? Maybe you shouldn't. While most people sleep peacefully, thinking the worst that could happen is a break-in or a wild animal, others swear they've seen something worse, something that isn't human, but isn't just an animal either, something that watches and hunts. These aren't conspiracy theorists or fanatics. These are truckers, hunters, small-town residents, all describing the same thing. A massive, fur-covered creature walking on two legs with glowing eyes that paralyze you in place. The fear doesn't go away. The silence around the stories makes it worse. In this video, you'll uncover some of the most chilling werewolf encounters ever recorded on American soil. Real places, real people, terrifying experiences no one can explain, and most try to forget. But it's too late now, because if it is real, you may have already crossed paths with it and never even knew. Origins of the legend from myth to curse. It all begins long before cameras and horror movies. Back in a time when the world was driven more by fear of the unknown than by science. Ancient civilizations already told stories of men who turned into beasts. A divine punishment, a curse that ripped out the soul and left only instinct, a punishment born from rage. In ancient Greece, there's a story of a king who dared defy the gods and was transformed into a beast, a disfigured creature covered in fur, doomed to live as a monster. This was the beginning of the link between sin and transformation, the terrifying shift from man to animal. And from then on, the werewolf became a symbol of imbalance and punishment, something half-human and entirely uncontrollable. In medieval Europe, fear spread like wildfire. Entire villages lived in constant tension, dreading nighttime attacks, where the explanation was always the same: werewolves. They didn't just attack, they devoured. These stories were told by firelight, with wide eyes and trembling hands. It wasn't just legend, it was daily terror rooted in reality. Or so they believed. During the Inquisition, being accused of lycanthropy was a death sentence. Transformations were seen as the work of the devil, proof of demonic pacts. Even the slightest suspicion, light eyes, strange behavior, excess hair, could be used as evidence. Men were hunted, tortured, and burned alive. Fear fueled the flames, and the flames spread more fear. It was said the curse could be transmitted by a scratch, a bite, or even by drinking water from a wolf's footprint. The terror wasn't just in the transformation, it was in how silently it spread, like a disease with no cure, waiting for the right moment and the right moon to awaken. And the waiting filled the days with dread and the nights with nightmares. When the full moon rose, no one slept in peace. Transformations were described as excruciating, grotesque, as if the body were being torn apart from within. Bones cracking, muscles stretching, screams turning into howls. It was the horror of losing oneself. The exact moment when the human died and the beast took over. A pain that only ended in blood. But even with so much fear, one question persisted: could they be killed? The answer came soaked in superstition. Silver, a pure, sacred element said to pierce the profane flesh of the creature. And so, the symbolic weapon against terror was born, the silver bullet. But is that enough? To end a curse that has survived for centuries? American lycanthropy, legends from the USA. When the myth crossed the ocean, it found a new home in America's vast landscapes, dense forests, deserted roads, isolated communities, the perfect setting for fear to grow. And right there, in the silence of rural life, the figure of the werewolf adapted to American reality. The result? Terrifying legends like the Beast of Bray Road still whispered about in fear today. In the small town of Elkhorn, Wisconsin, reports began in the 1980s, but something tells us it was there long before that. a huge, muscular, fur-covered creature with fierce eyes and a bipedal stance, like a man who forgot how to be human. Ordinary people saw it, described it, and swore that was no wolf. It was something worse. A nighttime terror that watches and waits. Further north, in Michigan's cold forests, another name took hold: the Dogman, a nightmare with a man's body and a canine head, said to appear in 10-year cycles, always leaving panic behind. The 1987 radio song that made it famous seemed like a joke, until the sightings started multiplying. Coincidence? Or a dark pattern, repeating like a cursed clock? There's something about the northern U.S. wilderness that seems to amplify this kind of legend. The sounds, the isolation, the wild nature, everything works together to turn suspense into terror. Many say they only saw the creature for a second, but that second never leaves them. The fear doesn't fade. It stays, watching with the creature. Down south, in Louisiana's swamps, the name changes, but the horror remains: the Rougarou. Born from Cajun tradition, this monster is tied to religious transgressions. Break Lent, and your punishment might come in the form of claws and teeth. The swamp swallows sound and bodies. Those who hear the Rougarou's scream rarely live to tell the tale. And though each state has its own version, they all share a chilling core: the mystery of transformation. Whether by curse, sin, or something darker, the man becomes a beast. And the beast doesn't forget. It walks the same roads, watches the same houses. It blends into everyday life, hidden behind normal eyes. That's what truly terrifies. Out west, in indigenous lands, another legend echoes: the skinwalkers. Different from European werewolves, but just as terrifying. Witches with the ability to shapeshift, driven by dark intentions and silent hunger. Native communities speak of them with caution and fear, because these aren't just legends. Modern sightings and encounters. These legends didn't stay in the past. If anything, they evolved. In the 21st century, the sightings are getting darker, more disturbing. Ordinary people driving through rural highways at night report seeing massive figures crossing the road in seconds. Tall creatures, walking upright, glowing eyes, and a silence that comes right before panic. A fear that sticks with you. Cell phone cameras tremble, catching flickers of movement between trees. The videos are always blurry, shaky, but there's something. Claws dragging in the dirt, labored breathing in the background, a presence that almost leaps off the screen. The internet became the vault for modern terror, filled with stories, grainy footage, and whispered theories in shadowed forums. One case from Ohio drew attention recently. A group of teens camping near an abandoned trail heard heavy footsteps in the dead of night. When they peeked outside their tent, they saw a creature, upright, motionless, as if it knew it was being watched. It didn't flee. It just turned its head slowly and bared its teeth. None of them have returned to the woods since. In California, a truck driver stopped after seeing something cross the road. He described the figure as a grotesque mix of man and wolf, with firm posture and terrifying size. The worst part? It knocked on his truck's door, not with claws, with a hand. Then it simply vanished. The man quit his job within days, said he'd never drive at night again. Some people find footprints, huge, deep, impossible to belong to any known animal, always near remote areas, far from city lights. Residents install trail cams to catch whatever is roaming their land. They rarely capture anything clear, but what they do get chills the blood. Glowing eyes, multiple, watching silently. What unsettles people the most is the consistency. No matter the state, the season, or the environment, people keep seeing something. A shadowy figure, a growl no animal should make, a trail of terror left behind. And despite the lack of hard evidence, the stories match in the same unsettling details. The movement, the gaze, the presence, something connects them all. But what? Most try to dismiss it, say it's imagination, exaggeration. But what if it's not? What if something really is living out there, hidden in the forests, in forgotten trails, something waiting for the right moment to appear? Or worse, something that already did? Because sometimes the scariest stories are the ones that are never told. Rational explanations. The supernatural. Not everyone believes in monsters. And honestly, that makes sense. The human mind always tries to rationalize fear. Many experts claim that sightings of werewolf-like creatures are really just misidentified animals. Black bears, for example, can stand on their hind legs and look eerily human for a few terrifying seconds. But does that really explain everything? There are also massive dog breeds, like mastiffs or Irish wolfhounds, that, in the dark or from a distance, can appear monstrous. And if they're sick, mangy, or injured, their appearance gets even more disturbing. But not all stories focus on what was seen. Some focus on how it behaved, the movement, the intelligence, the way it stared back. That's harder to explain. Psychology has its theories too. Clinical lycanthropy, a rare condition where a person believes they're turning into an animal. Delusions, changes in posture and voice, even aggressive outbursts. But then again, how do you explain it when multiple people see the same creature in the same place, describing the same impossible thing? Mass hysteria? Or something deeper? Pareidolia could be part of it, our brain trying to find familiar shapes in the shadows. A branch becomes a claw, a deer's eyes become something watching. But what if the shadows leave tracks? What if the sound gets recorded? What if the fear felt in that moment doesn't fade, even after years? Sometimes what we think we imagined leaves marks behind. Some point to suggestion the power of stories to influence what we think we see. If a town is known for its legends, people are more likely to interpret a strange noise as something supernatural. Sure, but what about someone who never heard the legend and describes it down to the smallest detail? Fear doesn't always spread through stories. Sometimes it walks beside us. Hoaxes exist, of course, people chasing attention, clicks, or internet fame. But even among the skeptics, there's something that's hard to ignore. The emotion, the raw fear in a witness's eyes, the voice that cracks mid-sentence, the long pause before they continue. That doesn't feel like acting. It feels like trauma, and trauma leaves a scent stronger than logic. And in the end, even with all these theories, something still lingers. A gap in the explanation, a space where the logic breaks down. And that's where the supernatural breathes. In the quiet between what we know and what we dread. Maybe that's where it's hiding, still watching. The werewolf isn't just an old-school horror monster. It's a reflection, a twisted mirror of everything we try to hide. Rage, instinct, chaos barely held in check. And that's what makes the legend so terrifying. Because deep down, it could be real. And it could be closer than we think. It's a symbol of ancient fear, the fear of losing control, of waking up one day and not recognizing your own skin, of watching your mind vanish and something else take over. The transformation isn't just physical, it's spiritual. A brutal shift from human to beast, and maybe back again, if you're lucky. These stories don't survive this long without a reason. They touch something deep, something science can't explain, and logic doesn't want to confront. But the forests are still dark, the howls still echo, and the sightings keep coming, as if time doesn't kill the monster. It just teaches it how to hide better. So, do you really know who's around you? Or better yet, do you know yourself? The line between man and monster is thinner than you think. Under the full moon, it disappears completely. The terror doesn't only live in the creature, it lives in the doubt, and it grows when the lights go out. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever heard a story like this in your town? A strange noise, a pair of glowing eyes, a silhouette that didn't match any animal you know? Share it in the comments. Every detail matters, and who knows, maybe your story connects the dots for all of us. If this kind of dark, twisted content pulls you in, if you love stories that blend legend with reality and leave you questioning everything, hit the like button. It helps the channel grow and lets me keep bringing you more stories like this. And of course, subscribe now, because what's coming next might haunt your sleep. And don't forget to turn on notifications. That little bell might be the only warning you get before the next creature shows up. The darkness still holds secrets, and together we'll keep chasing them, even if they're chasing us back. See you in the next video, if you dare.